Time isn't a measure of seconds passed, but of moments remembered. As I sat down in my chair, in the middle of a Saturday made long by a morning test, an overdue rumination from a week where standing still felt like a deadly sin, I thought of that quote. I thought of the number of times I spoke with older loved ones in the past and how they would tell me that their years were flowing by like a river while mine felt as if I was grinding through them like sand in an hourglass. I knew that they weren't the only ones who felt this way though, so since then, I had felt as if I was an odd one out until I got a taste of the lifestyle that they were living. Now, having been to both sides of the pond, I needed to figure out how could I fairly make my life last as long as possible, long enough for me to appreciate it. And a good place for us to start would be why time felt slow to me. Time felt slow to me, especially last year, because this is when I was having a lot of these conversations or just listening to people say, this year moved by so quickly. While I would tell them, it moved quickly for you guys, but for me, it's felt like I've been stuck in this year for 3 years. I always tell people that my matric year, which for people not in South Africa is the final year of high school, was the longest year of my life because so many things were happening. I went to school 6 days a week. There was a 3 week time span where I went to school every single day, meaning there was a time when I went to school 21 days in a row. And it was regular school, going through regular classes, having extra classes as well. And in the meantime, there were days when I still had to do projects and I had to do a few assignments here and there. So because of that, it made my days feel so busy. And it doesn't even mention the fact that I had responsibilities outside of academics. I was an executive member of the school's representative council. I was the secretary. So I had a lot of things to do in the sense that I had to organize meetings, keep up with what was going on in the school, especially with the school faculty, the teachers and all of that, how the learners are doing, because those kinds of things informed decisions we would make as representatives of the entire high school for the sake of the learners. So when all of these things came into play and they all came together and they just said, hey, mentals, this is us. We are now entering your life. It just made the previous year feel like so much of a slog. But I thought back to it as well, and I thought about how even in previous years, while they weren't as much of a slog, I got this idea that I was able to remember different segments of my life and different pieces of my life due to what I was doing in them. And that made my childhood feel a bit longer than what I fear most people's childhoods would feel like if you fall in a specific category, which I am going to mention later in the video. But for example, I can remember the first time I ever touched a video game, and I can remember what video game it was. And that was when I was around 6, when I was still in grade R, which is basically before you get to grade 1. For those, again, who are not from South Africa, I'm going to do that a lot when I'm making such domestic examples. And then when I look further in life, I can remember the time when I was in grade 3, and I can remember that year vividly because it was the first time I had a crush on someone, and then I told them I had a crush on them, and then they kind of rejected me. So that memory is also there, and it makes it so easy to just space out my childhood into different sections. I remember grade 2 because there was a time when I ran a race outside, and it was on pavement, but I fell and I scraped my knee, and now I have a scar on my knee that's just stuck with me for the past 12 years. And even in grade 4, and that was a year I remember because it was the first time I did karate, and I was getting into karate, and I was just practicing every single Tuesday and Thursday, just going to training and going to learn new things in karate and just hanging out with people in the dojo. I could do this for every single segment of my life. One of my favorite ones was when I got to, I want to say grade 7, not high school per se. I was about to say high school, but around that time was when I first started writing novels. And let's just say that that's put me on a path that I can never come back from. People always talk to me about how I come up with such poetic words. I mean, not to toot my own horn, but if I really want to, I can get pretty poetic, as you can see with the recent intros. But when they ask me that, I tell them, oh, it's just one day I was writing novels and I realized that my brain was just broken and designed in a way to write novels and to make up stories and tell them and to rearrange thoughts. And ever since then, I never looked back. The day I realized my brain was broken in that sense, I never wanted to look back and I just charged on ahead. So that's one of the things that really informed the quote that we're talking about today. It's that idea that the fact that I can remember years, and I'm trying to get to a point where I can remember months in a year based on specific events, it makes my childhood and it makes the years that passed feel so memorable and so special to me. Well, not memorable and special, that's not relevant here, but it makes it feel like things were spaced out. It's not like my grade 9 and grade 10 year were the exact same year, for example. Different things happened. So that means that when we look at what we're talking about, one thing that we can take away is that my life was not mundane. It wasn't really something that just fed into itself. One day didn't just fade into another day as if it were a video that we're editing on CapCut. And that's also another part that I wanted to talk about, in that sense that when I look beyond myself and I look at the people around me, I think one thing that really does make it so that days feel the same and a year flies by so quickly is because we don't really do anything with our time. We don't do anything memorable, or even if it is productive, it just feels so mundane. And if it's not calling to a higher purpose beyond ourselves, or if it's not actively pushing us towards a dream, then for lack of a better term, it's as if we are in a computer and we're just in RAM. We're in the primary source of memory, where as soon as the computer turns off, we're just gone. And then we just come back as this different form. But the point is, like, we're not permanent. These things don't really get remembered until you get a new instance of it, but you don't remember the old instances of it. And the reason why I bring this up is because I noticed that so many of us just get sucked into technology, in the sense that we get sucked into our screens. Some of us are scrolling YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, or TikToks for hours on end. And when we look forward a week later and someone asks us, what were the Reels and what were the TikToks and the Shorts that we watched when we hit that 3-hour binge session, it's very hard for us to remember specific details of them unless it's just trends or catchy catchphrases, if that makes sense. And I think once we stop doing that, I think that time would logically just feel like it's flowing a lot faster. But even beyond the applications, I think it does make sense for why time feels like it's flowing so quickly. One thing that I realized, or at least I was brought in front of, like it came to attention for me, was that as we get older, we recognize things in the world a lot more often. We learn more about the world, more about what a regular day looks like. We become accustomed to that. And because we're so used to something, because we see it every single day, it stops being so curious. The world becomes mundane. And it goes back to this idea that if everything is the same, if every day feels the same, then you can't differentiate with memory what made Monday so different to Tuesday. If you saw all the same people, if you saw clothes you've seen before, buildings you've seen before, and if you've touched on things you've already touched on in the past. Because of that, the days just bleed into each other. And for lack of a better term, everything just becomes the same. And once that just adds up in the background, today it's January 1st. And you've gone through so many of those similar days, all of a sudden it's April, and you think about what happened in these past few months, and you can't really say something. It feels like they flew by so quickly because there's no memories, there's no unique memories. And then, boom, it's August. And now we're starting to talk to each other and be like, hey, where did the year go? So one of the things that really annoys me about this is that it reminds me of how soul crushing the 9-to-5 work-life paradigm can be. This idea that as human beings, we wake up so early in the morning, we prepare ourselves, I want to say, doll ourselves up. You have a job that needs you to wear things a specific way, wear specific clothes, have a specific haircut, have a specific personality, especially if it's service industry, or if it's anything where you either interact with clients or you interact with important people. It could be co-workers or managers and bosses. And then we basically just play that performance. Maybe for some people, it feels like home for them. It feels natural to them. But we play that performance day in and day out, and then we get so exhausted as human beings, and then we come home and we're so tired that we can't even do the things that you would need to do to make life so interesting. If we're living in a world like that, even beyond that of getting a job, I'm already noticing that with university. When I first came to university, I was so anxious and scared because it's a new environment and it's a new place to be in. And what would happen was became very good at standardizing my day. I'd wake up at 5 a.m. I'd work towards my academic goals and nothing else. And while the main thing is getting the degree, and that'll help with me getting the degree, it still doesn't take away from the fact that every day I was going to start feeling the same. So heading into the second semester, once I finally proved to myself that, hey, I can handle the academic stress, I am an intelligent person, or at least intelligent enough to pay attention in class, study in advance, and pass these tests, I need to actually live a life for myself in these next 4 years. Mainly in inspired by two things. Number one, university is very expensive, and I don't want to waste my parents' money in two ways. I don't want to waste their money in the sense that I'm not doing well in school and I don't get the degree. But number two, I don't want to waste their money in the sense that they took me into university. I'm away from them, I'm away from family, so I get to build up independence. And I didn't build independence, and I didn't carve out a foundation for my life beyond work properly. So what I did, and it also just comes back to the video in the sense of how I think we can prolong the length of time or prolong how long our lives feel, is that we need to make each and every single day unique. Because ever since the second half of the year, ever since the second semester has begun for me, I've made sure that at least every week there has to be something that makes that week stand out from the rest. I have to keep trying to do that. I have to keep giving myself, as we call them this side quests. I have to give myself side quests and not worry about the main story so much, because I tell myself that, and I really do believe this, what I'm going to remember about my years in university is similar to what I've remembered in my years as a child. I'm not going to fondly remember me looking down on a piece of paper, having anxiety, the past version of me, but having anxiety as I'm trying to get the correct answer on a question in a test, let alone me remembering me sitting on a specific spot in a lecture hall, just listening to someone speak to me about a concept. I won't remember that day, but if I ever apply that concept in my job or in the real world, I'll remember the concept. So once that hit for me, it was really that thing of I wanted to just make sure that every week, or at least every month, even every month, there's something unique that happened in that month where I can remember it. For example, for me in January, it was a month where I finally took a risk as opposed to trying to take the safe route and going to the absolute undisputed best university in the country. I came to a rival that isn't considered to be as high in the rankings as that university, because I didn't want to just buckle and choose a degree that wasn't really going to be my first or second choice. In February, I remember this day where it was the first time I stepped foot on this campus, and I went alone before orientation, before the tour, and I felt so lost because it's so big, there's so many people, there's so many roads going here and there, but I got to see the campus for the first time. And I can do this for a month after month after month after month because I just dared myself to have experiences. And to close off on this video, if there is one thing that I would say you should take away from this video absolutely, is that if life really does feel like it's moving so fast with you, please do look at your life. Please think about what you're doing. If you're watching this at night, list down the things you did today. List down what you have done at the end of the day. What have you amounted to? If it's the end of the week, do the same thing for the week. If it's the beginning of a month or the end of a month, do so either for the previous month or do so for the month that just ended. Because the thing is, you need to have awareness on a problem before you're able to properly solve it and investigate it. That's a conversation for another video though. But that's my main takeaway of today's video. I really do hope that what I've said does give you value. And if it does, or if you think something can be tweaked, or if you have more questions, please comment them down below. While I'm still small, while I don't have a lot of subscribers and commenters, I can look at those and I can answer them in the comment itself. But of course, it's been Mental Chat, it's been Mentals, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I'll see you.